is the first time that we're kind of going to go through this in detail. Let me see yours. And the reason for that is so you can understand kind of the animals in the zoo. And there's lots of them. So let's go through it. Let's see, David, your education is? Do you say, are you close to a bachelor's degree?
I had 5 years of college, never got the degree.
Oh my God, well,
I'm still going. I'm still going.
Okay. You have a CFP credential. What does that mean?
Certified Financial Planner. It required me 3 years of college education. I had to pass 5 exams, and then I had to sit. Once I passed those exams, I had to sit for a comprehensive exam for a day and a half. It's very difficult. And 50% of the people today, and everybody wants to be a CFP, fail that test the first time, and they come back, and some of them eventually pass. It's very difficult. It is one of the premier letters that you want to see if you're doing financial planning. And we're here to talk about financial planning 1 and 2, so it's really important.
Is in the CFP, is there a number of years experience required?
Once you pass all those exams, then you have to actually have 3 years of work experience in the field.
So you have to have 3 years of work.
And continuing education of 30 hours per year to maintain that.
Okay. How many designations do you think there are in the financial services industry? How many? It's a question, really.
30.
About 200. Okay? You probably, sitting through the 8 weeks here, you're probably at the 80% of all designations in the financial services. You've put in more work than what's most designations out there that you can purchase. If you're in the financial services industry, what do you want people to believe? They're qualified. Designation somehow gives the inference that somebody's qualified. So you have titles like the Certified Senior Advisor. It's probably less than a day course, costs you around $3,000, and you can put that after your name.
CSA?
CSA.
Confederate States of America.
There's a registered financial planner. There are just literally, they have it on the FINRA website warning people that most of the designations in the financial services industry have no meaning. The CFP, by the way, at one time was in the same boat. You could get a CFP designation from the College for Financial Planning in Denver, open book test, in the mail course, and you got your CFP designation. Today, it's completely different. There's actually, was the exam easy?
No, very difficult.
Yeah.
I have to say, I failed it the first time around, had to wait 6 months to take it again, pay another $1,000 fee, and I'm telling you, I had never worked, and I've been in the financial services industry for 18 years at that time. So,
how long is the exam?
It's a day and a half.
Day and a half.
2 morning segments and an afternoon segment. And I'm telling you that they've got the most advanced testing to be able to, if you get somebody that's a mind, that can remember things perfectly, they won't be able to pass the test.
Can you just take it, or do you have to have a certain amount?
You have to be able to sit for it, and you have to pass certain
You have to have a credential from UCI?
Yeah, there's a couple ways of doing it. Either you have to pass 5 sections, and you have to do it with an accredited college or
It's gone completely legitimate. This is literally, for a financial planner, you should be looking at least for a CFP.
Is that in California?
Nationally.
It's national.
Yeah, it's almost international now. They have Canada and Australia, etc.
But the exams are given all over?
Yes, all over. So the CFP has some meaning, yes.
What was the website you mentioned that you could check the meaning of these?
You can do FINRA and then put broker check. You could also do SEC, Securities and Exchange, SEC, and do broker check. Okay? For anyone who's a registered investment advisor, FINRA will have it on their website, and you can check them out. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, but I'm going to go slow just because I think it's important to be able to recognize someone who is legitimate. Does it matter if you're a CFP, can you be in the business of selling product?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay? So that doesn't prevent somebody from getting a CFP and saying, hey, they can't sell product.
Can you be a member of NAPFA and sell product?
No.
No. There's
a big difference.
Okay.
NAPFA is the highest order.
What does NAPFA stand for?
National Association of Professional Financial Advisors.
NAPFA?
FA.
National Association of Personal Financial Advisors?
Yes.
Okay. And you can get that on the internet as well.
Google it and you'll see. I'm a NAPFA member. Our firm is, and instead of having the 30, you have to be a CFP, and you have to have 30 units of continuing education for the CFP. For NAPFA, you have to have 60 per year, 60 hours.
And that's per year?
Per year. And we're only fee only. No licenses whatsoever.
Kurt,
Can't sell it.
your college background says college? Are you just like David?
With the exception that I'm not a CFP yet.
Okay. So you're still in the CFP program?
Yes, I'm pursuing my CFP and my bachelor's, and that's why I'm in David's firm.
Okay. And you say you have 7 years experience. What were you doing for the past 7 years?
I've been Don Juan, actually.
The truth comes out.
I actually spent the first 6 years of my professional career as in the financial services industry with sales organizations, and they were mostly insurance-based. So I started out with American Express Financial Advisors before they actually spun off and became Ameriprise. And then I was with a small firm in Irvine called Trilogy Financial Services. Both were sales-oriented because at the time I didn't know how to get into the industry on a fee-only basis and still be able to eat. So that was a tough part.
And that's the hard thing. Remember when we talked about the vacuum cleaners and we said there's a table over here, if you could pay 10 or 20 bucks, that'll give you the advice, the objective advice as to which vacuum cleaner you should buy. And we asked the question, how many individuals would go over here to this table and pay the 10 to 20 bucks to learn about the vacuum cleaners? And basically nobody would pay. And that's kind of what he's talking about. He says to be in the fee-only business, you're going to starve. It takes you 3 to 10 years to build up a book of business where people will trust you enough to think that you will provide value to them. Because everybody else in the industry, you can go to Don Juan and get anything you want. And don't, quote unquote, have to pay for it. David, what did you do before you became a fee-only financial advisor?
I started right here in Laguna Beach in 1971.
And so when you got tired of ripping people off, what did you do?
I went into a depression. Not part of the truth.
Is the culture different between a fee-only advisor and a stockbroker?
Yes, in 1971, you didn't have such things as registered investment advisors like you have today, and you had to work for a brokerage firm. And yes, the culture is totally different. It's sales-oriented, and in the back rooms, you do high fives for, you know, and the most important thing is to be the biggest salesman in the office. You get all the best offices, you get everything. And as a consumer, that's probably the last person you want to go to because they're the best salesman. And you may not, you know, it's just, the culture is sales oriented.
Yeah. I went in and I was with a Smith Barney broker, and the gal had rheumatoid arthritis, and she couldn't work for about 6 months. And so I just met her before she couldn't work, and she was in a beautiful corner office in Laguna Hills, in Smith Barney office there. And when I came back 6 months later, she was in a tiny little room in the back, and all of her boxes were stacked on the floors and everything else. And I asked her, what happened? And she says, I've been home ill. I've tried to recover from my knee surgery, and if you're not producing, you don't get that corner office. It's all about production, okay? About selling these products. If you don't sell, you're gone. And it's just literally that way. Okay, let's go to relevant licenses. Oh, by the way, how long have you been a fee-only advisor?
6 years.
6 years. And we'll ask you some more questions on just a little bit on that. Relevant licenses. Kirk, David, you don't have any. It says none. Why is that?
Because I joined NAPA and I had to get rid of all of my security licenses. I had all the top licenses.
So how do you be in the business of financial planning and not have a license?
Well, I work under registered investment advisor. I'm a registered investment advisor with the SEC in the state of California. And I have to, you can get this, I've got a couple of copies.
So why don't we start one here and start one over here?
It's required registration, which is not a big deal. Registration is cost time, and you have to put all your history down, and then you have to get approved to move on. And then that in itself is not a big deal. And just about anybody can go through those steps if you don't have arrest records and things like that, and frauds and things like that. But you can get through that with time and become a registered investment advisor. Not too hard. But then you've got to annually update this. And everything you've said follows you all the way along. It's on the web. Everything is there. If you lied or misstated anything, you're gone. I mean, you made a federal offense, so you don't do that.
Every registered investment advisor has to provide a client with their ADV form. And that's the ADV form that's going around, that's David's. But it's required to be distributed. You can go online and get his ADV form of any registered investment advisor. Okay? So it's kind of full disclosure again. It not only states what his educational background is, it also states on the ADV how he operates his business, whether or not he negotiates his fees, what kind of products is he involved in, how literally he runs his business is exactly on that ADV form. It's kind of like the prospectus in an investment. Yes?
Who's overseeing this?
The FINRA and the SEC.
And the state of California.
The ADV form is mandated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Okay?
Investment Advisor Act of 1940.
Yeah, and you get to be a registered investment advisor, an RIA. An RIA is not a credential. It's just a registration with the government so they can track you. So hopefully to keep people like Bernie Madoff out of the system, but he was running the system. Okay? But the idea is that you can go from Merrill Lynch, Smith Barney, any registered investment advisor, and go online and get all this information. If you, for the fun of it, go to Morgan Stanley, they're a registered investment advisor, and go and do their ADV form. You have to go through every infraction that they incur. It is about 50 to 100 pages long of where they neither admit or deny, but they paid a substantial penalty. It's all online, and nobody checks. Okay, so one of the things you ought to do, whomever you're working with, you may want to go online and find their ADV form and see how many times they've been arrested. How many times, David? No? Good news, he's never been arrested. But that information would be on there. Okay? So now the fact is let's say, what licenses did you guys hold when you were selling product?
I had supervisory...
so what's the license number? Was it a
724?
24?
I was option supervisor, or a stock supervisor.
And for all of those things, you need a license to sell. And so if he had relevant licenses, you would see him on here. And that's why it's really good news. They don't have any of that stuff. No licenses whatsoever. That's good. If I was in the business of selling, what do you think I would try to make these licenses out to be?
Credentials.
Exactly. And they do. Okay? They're not. They're like minimum level of qualification to sell. So that's why this Ask First form becomes very valuable. And the fact that they don't have any licenses is a real plus. Because you can buy all quote-unquote those products at no load without commission. You don't need a commissioned salesperson to do financial planning. Is there any questions? And Kirk, you have, what is it right here? You have a 66. What does that mean?
Series 66, I get to work with David's Registered Investment Advisory as an investment advisory representative. So as a representative of David's company, I'm an extension. And so that's the FINRA licensing thing.
Okay.
So which group of letters are you actually looking for to sit down and do business?
It's difficult. You can't really trust a CFP.
That's right.
Because they could be selling you product. If they're a registered investment advisor, then you look and read that registered investment advisor to see whether or not it's somebody you want to work with. There is no free letters that will say, this is an ethical, competent individual. Okay?
Wouldn't somebody want to have both those? Be registered and be certified?
Yes. They're certifiable registered. No, you're absolutely right. That's what you want. To me, I would look for a registered investment advisor, and I would look for somebody who is a CFP. Does that make a guarantee? No. You got to read the stuff. You got to figure out, and we're going to go through it. We'll find out some other things. If they're licensed in insurance, does that make them an expert in insurance? Do you guys counsel people on insurance? So what do? You can't sell them an insurance policy, right?
No, we usually, we look at the facts, and if they need insurance, we say keep it, and if they need more insurance, then we can send them to a lower commissioned, somebody that would care about them.
And would you receive a kickback from that individual? Come on. No. You bought me drinks last night. No. And that's a question to ask. Are you getting referral fees from your sources and back and forth? You know? In the sales world, how do you get somebody to sell more?
Give them benefits.
Give them benefits, bigger commissions, but also they run contests. Hey, if you get to this level, we'll give you a trip to Europe. You know? If I'm working with a broker, I sometimes ask, are you got any contests going, internally?
How do you verify they're not getting referral fees?
You can't.
Actually, if there is, it'll be in the ADP.
If you're dealing with an RIA, then you look in there, it has to be disclosed.
And it has to be above board. But you're absolutely right. There's no way to really tell. But, you know, if they were to stumble and kind of hesitate, you maybe want to think twice.
And if they're lying on an ADB, they're in trouble. I mean, you just don't lie on.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, priests are not all priests, you know. I have my collar at home. Okay. Legal services. You guys are not involved in the practice of law, but do you work with people and putting their estate plan together?
Yes.
Absolutely. And then they refer out to an attorney who does the work. You guys are not CPAs. What happens there?
Well, we do a lot of the numbers that we're capable of doing, and we say that you've got to check this with your CPA.
Yeah. It is no longer where you can do all of this stuff yourself. You know, it's impossible. Especially if you have a significant size estate. One guy can't do it. One girl, one woman can't do it. You know, you need a team. You need that CPA. You need that attorney to do the financial planning process. Business relationship. This is the crucial one, I think, on the entire page. One, and they both say true. I will at all times serve as a fiduciary and put your interest before my interest and those of my employer. So if they do something in the relationship that is not in your best interest but in their own best interest, they are subject to liability. And this little sheet of paper right here, because they certify that the above is true and correct, is a great winner in a lawsuit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no contest.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I believe that no one would say false. And I believe that if they were taken to court, they would say, I thought this was going to be in my client's
Yeah.
best.
Everybody, 95, remember we said 95% of the people in the financial services industry sell? They're under what's called a suitability standard. And so they're only going to be held liable if they sell you an insurance product or a mutual fund or a gold fund or whatever if it's unsuitable.
Clearly unsuitable.
Clearly unsuitable. However,
Any firm that anybody would sign that if they're a sales, if they signed that they were a fiduciary, if their firm, doesn't matter who it is, got hold of that, they would maybe not lose their job, but they would have to correct it and they would be told that they are not a fiduciary.
yes.
They are not a fiduciary.
Yeah. There's very few people in this industry who are fiduciaries and who are legally required to put your best interest first. Only a registered investment advisor will be under a fiduciary standard. Would you want to work with anybody else who could not be? I can't see it, you know? Why? If you work with somebody at Smith Barney, they have a license similar to what Kirk just said. He's a registered rep of David. If you was with Smith Barney, Kirk would be a registered rep of Smith Barney. And therefore, his fiduciary duty, his best interest, is work for the best interest of the company, not for you. Do you see on this? It's a little bit more clear if you look at the compensation issue. Look at the compensation. It has 2 marks on there. It says 1, ways I will be paid, and then it has a little box over here on the other side, and it says payment will be made by. Okay? So, name each person or company. If Kirk was working for Smith Barney, you would not write out the check to Kirk. Or the payroll check that Kirk would receive comes from Smith Barney, not from you. You pay Smith Barney pays Kirk. In this particular case, you would pay David, and David pays Kirk. So it really is important how that payment structure is made, and that's why they distinguish the two. It's a little bit confusing. Can I answer a question on this?
The other step also is that in that Smith-Barney model, Smith-Barney is actually paid by the mutual fund company or the insurance company. So it's not actual compensation coming directly from you, typically.
Yeah, and so what you want to do is if you pay David, now who does David have a responsibility to? You, the client. Okay, and that's what you want. By the way, you guys don't look like saints, and you work for free. So how do you charge?
We charge what is in our ADV that's being passed around, and the simple answer is 1% of anything under $75 million.
Okay, I'm going to say, since the typical investment is $100,000, I'm going to give you $100,000 to invest. How would you be paid?
I'd be paid 1% divided by 4 at the end of the first quarter.
So
prorated basis if it was a partial quarter.
Okay. First quarter, and what would you be paid?
I would be paid 1%, 10,000 divided by 4.
10,000, that's 1,000. 1% of 100,000.
Excuse me, 1,000.
We don't want to go to hell.
I'm used to millions.
So that's $1,000.
1,000 divided by 4.
So that would be $250.
$250.
Okay. So
And that's up front.
No.
Oh, that's
It can be, but it depends on how you write the agreement. We'll talk about it a little bit later in Financial Planning 1. But we have to have an agreement, and it spells it right in there exactly if it's in arrears, which is...
question is, what do you do?
We send out...
No. What do you do as far as payment? Do you get it up front, or do you get it after the first quarter?
After the first quarter.
Okay, so they take it out after the first quarter. But it's a great question to ask. Some financial planners take it up front.
And it can be...
It's either way.
negotiated too.
And it is up to negotiation.
But it's in writing. When you decide on it, it's in writing between both of you.
So for 3 months, it costs you $250. Remember the mutual fund? Okay, American funds. Okay, we put $100,000 in. I just want to give this comparison. How did the American fund salesperson get paid? Commission. It was, let's say, I think it was 5.75, but I'm just going to say 6 because I can't do 5.75. What's 6% of 100,000?
6,000.
6,000. And when did they get that 6,000?
Up front.
Up front.
There's front loader and a rear loader.
Yeah, but let's just say this is an A fund up front. $6,000. $6,000 on this one, and by the way, your investment now, instead of being $100,000, it would be what? 94. Okay, look at this. $250 to $6,000.
This was an annuity, this would be $9,000.
Yeah, if it was annuity, it would be $9,000. That's why Kirk said I could starve going on a fee-only basis.
It's really true.
It's really true. We'll go through the next 2 sessions of everything that they will do before the apple falls off the apple cart, and that's the investments. Okay? Because it's like the last thing you think of, not the first. They want you to think that that's the first thing you think of, and that's why you're paying the commission. So this is an unbelievable how much work that they have to do for this $250 just for you to stay. But I want you to understand how the compensation system works. Any questions on compensation? If I bring $5 million into you, is it still 1%?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
But it's negotiated, you read that ADV and it can be negotiated.
Okay.
So it depends really, our fees are based on how much work it's going to be over time.
How about personality? Will you charge more for somebody who's negative or angry?
That's why David charges you too.
That's why. That's why he charges me too.
He won't do business with anyone that is negative or ornery.
Then right here we have in the we have here that below that box is a checker box that says I offer or sell annuities, insurance, mutual funds, or other financial products, or my employer is affiliated with a person or organization that offers or sells annuities, insurance, mutual funds, or other financial products. And they put down false. Okay? And the reason why that question is there is that if you go to a Wells Fargo, what does Wells Fargo own? They own a trust company, they own a mortgage company, they own a reverse mortgage company, they own insurance, and there's all sorts of cross-selling going on all the time. And so he's not genuinely a fee-only advisor if he's cross-selling, and that's why we ask that question. And then he puts down here on the bottom that he certifies that the above is true and correct. It takes about 2 minutes to complete this, and this little sheet of paper is worth its weight in gold. Okay? Because every single brokerage contract that you sign, what are kind of the questions do they ask you? Have you recently opened up a brokerage account? I mean, it's like 4 pages. They want to know what your net worth is. They want to know what your experience is in the financial services industry. They ask you all these questions.
Because of the suitability.
Because they want to figure out what product they're going to sell you. That's why they want to know that.
Also, they know that people always brag.
Yes. Because in this industry, if you were with a broker, you want to be dumb. You don't want to be smart. Okay? Because they can't sell sophisticated. Bob Citro is the perfect example. What did Bob do?
Treasurer.
Yeah, what? Who was his quote-unquote advisors?
Merrill Lynch.
Oh, Merrill Lynch.
Yeah.
Guys,
What did Merrill Lynch sell? Bob.
Really?
Exactly. And what was his defense when he went on trial? He was dumb, and he was. He didn't, first of all, he wasn't a dumb man, but he was way beyond what he had expertise in. Derivatives are enormously technical, difficult, complex, because it's not like a CD. Bob was a genius in the CD area. Okay, he could smell a bank that was offering a small percentage more, and he would go after it. I served 5 years on the board of directors of the American Heart Association as a staff person. So I saw him once a month or once every quarter, and he really didn't know anything about the financial services area. And he was taken for a ride. And Merrill Lynch is still doing business in Orange County. I can't believe it. They caused a bankruptcy, and people still do business with them. They're great sales guys. They are so good. It's just unbelievable. And it goes on all the time. People do not understand what they are buying. And so that's why it is asked first. If you go to arbitration, by the way, in a brokerage statement, do they give you anything that they promise to do for you? No. They don't hand you one sheet of paper. Okay? No, they don't. Okay? It's all about their warnings, etc., etc. I wouldn't do business without one of these things. And we're not going to, in the future speakers, we're going to go through this 10 times more rapidly than we are today. But I wanted you to understand the subtleties this Ask First form and how valuable it is. It's one of the best things in your packet. Use it with anybody who's going to be advising you on money, whether it's an attorney, whether it's a CPA, whether it's an insurance agent, etc. Don't listen to them until they complete this form. By the way, both of these guys are really nice guys. In addition, you know? But they're also very qualified. So one of the things is that, David, do you manage your money exactly the same way you do as your clients?
Yes.
So he eats his own cake, okay? Which is good to know. You've been around in Laguna Beach how long?
Well, most all my life.
So how old are you?
My parents moved here in 1960.
How old are you?
I'm 60, almost 66.
It's hard to say, isn't it?
He's right behind me. All of our eggs and things.
And that's why Kirk is here too, because hopefully Kirk is going to stay with David and carry on the business. So
They're all older than you.
yeah. So it's wonderful. We're going to talk about financial planning and for the next 2 sessions. So if we don't get to everything in your outline today, don't get frustrated. We'll get to it next week. David, Kirk, it's all yours.
Okay, Kirk and I talked about it. I'm going to start off and just give a little bit of an overview of what we're going to do, and then Kirk's going to take over for today, and then next week you'll hear more from me on asset allocation and a few other things. First of all, it's great to be here, and it's an honor. See my friend Tony here that we went through high school together, and one of my sister's best friends, and if you want a treat, talk to Tony afterwards and see if she'll introduce her to her mother, who's, the other day I ran into her, she was out sweeping the driveway right next to my office, and I said, how are you? She goes, fine, Dave, and she's old, she's 99 years old, and she has stories about Laguna Beach back when, and she tells them, it's terrific, it's good to see you, Tony. Okay, financial planning, it is.
Well, we're going to go through the. You're going to go through the outline.
This is the outline that we're gonna kind of talk from, but we can't do everything in here. But if you look through it, take it away and look through it, and you have questions about anything in here, you can talk to us after the meeting, or we'll answer any question. But we're not going to have time to go through all of this.
You're going to be here next week. Huh?
Yes, we'll be here next week.
Is this a 2-week?
A two-week coverage. And first of all, what is financial planning? You know, I went on Google last night and I Googled financial planning and I got 63,000 hits on what financial planning was. The #1 paid program was People with Merrill Lynch. And then it's a variety of all brokerage, major brokerage companies, banks, they all do financial planning. CFP board, that we talked about, the CFP is dedicated to the CFPs. So when I talk about financial planning, it's really what the CFP board talks about financial planning. So that's the way we'll do it. You can download, go into the CFP board and get all kinds of public disclosures and what we do. But basically what the CFP board says, that there's a process to financial planning, which we observe.
The only thing is we didn't talk about, in the slide on here, it says Chartered Financial Analyst, a CFA. You know, you had asked what credentials can we trust? You know, CFA is one of those credentials that you can put more reliance on. It's a 3-year program. Most individuals who run mutual funds are CFAs. They're kind of the engineers of the financial services world. They read everything having to do with the companies, the
balance sheets and
balance sheets
of companies,
yeah.
and they can tell how sound they are.
Yeah, so that,
Very good designation.
very good, very difficult to get. CFA is absolutely top notch.
Yeah, there's a couple from the insurance, the CHFC and the CFA, they're also from the insurance industry. Those are the top. And they would be pretty much equal to a CFP. So
You know, we also, David didn't talk about, when we were talking about, you guys are fee only, right?
yes, we are fee only.
What would it be is if I said, you said, what does fee-based mean?
Well, fee-based just opens up the doors. It's like a fee and anything else. You know, and that's what Smith Barney salesmen quite often, I get a lot of clients in, they say that they're fee-based, and it sounds so close to fee only that the public is really confused. It's not. Fee-based means that we charge fees, but there are other charges too that we can put in there. And sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. And we don't disclose those. They don't disclose those when they happen. So fee-based is a red flag. There's nothing wrong. I want to say something, Pete. As an old stockbroker, there are some terrific stockbrokers out there. Very, very principled and can help people very much and very bright. But it's a tough field, and the older stockbrokers and some of the ones I work with are really, really good individuals. So they're not all just salesmen. Some of them are real practitioners, and
Yes.
the majority of them that are coming up today, they're told to sell, they're told how to sell. So there's a difference.
So, dude, thank you, David, for that, because I don't want to paint everybody in the brokerage industry that they're blind. Just 100%. Jesus said you be extra cautious. They have to prove to you they are otherwise. So be very careful when somebody says to you fee-based, because it means they can charge fees and they can charge commissions.
That's right.
And fee offset, what does that mean?
Well, if you, sometimes we will say to a client that under your circumstances, we'll charge you $1,000 a year for everything we discussed, you know, doing the following things. And if there's any fee that's charged by the firm, Pershing in my case, or our custodians, if there are other fees, we can offset those, you know, so we'll absorb those.
What if I said, you know, what I like is that, you know, why should I pay you if you're going to lose me money? Can't I just pay you if you are successful in doubling my money?
Well, you can do that. There are different qualifications, usually accredited, but investors can do that. You get paid. You don't get paid unless you make at least you know, a profit, and then you can get 20% of those. We don't do that. There are some people that hedge funds are the classic example of who does that.
For that kind of a compensation structure, please stay away from performance-based financial advisors. Why? Because you cannot control risk. In other words, hey, the market is down 20%. I've invested $100,000 with you. Your value of your account is now valued at $80,000. And hey, I need to eat next month. Why not put $30,000 to $40,000 in a gold fund so I can maybe collect some monies performance-wise for your account? You cannot, on a performance-based fee structure, control risk. And that's the downside to performance-based investing. So you need to understand, how is the individual that you're working with compensated? Make that the first 15, 20 minutes of your conversation with an advisor so that you can thoroughly understand how they're getting paid.
Really, I guess the question is, when you talk about financial planning, what is it, and really, why do we do it? Anybody gone on vacation ever? Probably. And you probably spent a pretty good amount of time planning for that vacation, right? Well, it's just like that, except this is a much more extensive vacation and much more important, too. And so what we really need to know is, first of all, where do you want to go? Where are you at right now? And then finally, how do you get there? And in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're doing. So the first thing that we have to really take a look at is what are your goals and objectives, okay? So if you look at this yellow sheet here, this is kind of a way to, and one of our handouts here, it's something that you can take home and kind of do yourself. You can become your own financial planner to some degree. And really what it is we're going to rank what are those things that you want to accomplish. And on the right-hand side there's some recommendations. The first thing that's going to be on most people's list is how do I retire in the lifestyle that I've become accustomed to, or the lifestyle that I want during retirement, and make sure that that retirement lasts throughout my lifetime, right? And so that's one of those things. It's probably going to be the top thing on that list. But in addition to that, there's going to be other things that we can put numbers to, dollar amounts to, and time horizons to. And really that's what we want to do, is take an inventory of all the things that you'd like to accomplish from a financial standpoint. Because in the handout here, one of the quotes is that if you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else, right?
Yeah. What do you think people's biggest fears are?
Being a bag lady.
Huh?
Being a bag lady.
Yeah, right. And I see it in people that have $30 to $50 million, or people that have a small amount. It's that, will I outlive my resources? And that is such a fear. And nobody will kind of sit down with an advisor or a CPA and say, well, what's the realistic, intelligent way of this happening? And, you run the numbers, because people know how old they are. Do people change their habits, spending habits?
Oh, during retirement? Everybody says that they're going to spend less during retirement, but when actually we see the opposite happening in a lot of cases, where you're actually spending more during retirement. At least the same. Very rarely is it going to be less than you're spending while you're working.
So one of the first things you want on these yellow sheets is that, hey, I want to fund a college education for my grandchildren, or I want to spend I want to have time for more vacations or more money for vacations.
And really it's a question of choices, because we need to prioritize these goals as we go along. Well, what's the most important goal? Probably retirement. We want to make sure that we have enough money to last throughout your lifetime. So you assign that the highest priority, and then we work down from there. Funding the college education, travel, those all are going to be different priorities for different people.
So this is not just a frivolous exercise?
No, absolutely not. This is something that you should be working on.
Do you use this with every client, or almost every client?
This is part of the package that we use with every client. So, yeah. Okay, so really it's about getting that ultimate destination in mind so that we know where we're going. Okay, so that's the first piece of the puzzle. Next, we have to figure out, well, where are we right now? Where are we starting from? And if you look at this orange sheet that's also here, this is an income and expense statement. Okay? And it's front and back here. But what this does is it kind of helps you get your monthly expenses and incomes in line. We need to know from a cash flow standpoint what are our inputs and what are our outflows. And when we get that, we can actually set some planning around, well, if we're saving X amount, then how do we invest it? And really, is that going to be enough to get to our goals? Or do any of these things need adjusting so that you can achieve those goals that we put down on that yellow sheet? Does that make sense? Okay.
Sounds like a horrible exercise.
All-to-one retirement, that's alternative one. In other words, what do you expect to be, what are you spending now, what do you expect to be spending in retirement?
Correct. And when we look at income and expenses, all of this work can be facilitated through programs called like Quicken. If you use your credit card statements, if you use your bank account statements, you can actually go through and itemize all those expenditures. The thing is, don't forget about all the pocket change or the ATM withdrawals, all those outflows should also be assigned as well, so that you can get the most accurate picture that you can when you're talking about income and expense.
Why is it important for you as a financial planner to know how much I'm spending on an annual basis?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's also going to give us the ability, if we can figure out what are the necessity spending and what are the discretionary spendings, then we can also figure out how much you can afford to set aside, or if lifestyle changes need to be made so that you can achieve those goals. Right?
So it'll determine whether or not I'm not going to run out of money for the rest of my life.
Absolutely, absolutely. When it comes to that day of when the income eventually stops from one source and starts from another, is that transition going to be viable?
Does it determine the investment asset allocation model that you use?
Yes, absolutely. The ability to save is going to be one piece of that investment schedule when you're putting together a plan and you're actually implementing, which we're going to go into next week.
Yeah.
Let me just say one thing that I think is really important to us. See, people that are already retired quite often come into me, they know exactly how much they spend every month. And you don't have to go through this exercise if you already know it. And it's very helpful because there's quite a few people that know exactly how much they spend every month and they know what their income is. If we know that, then we can go right ahead and get the other figure.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get to is that it would be horrible if we made an investment and we needed the cash to live comfortably, and we had to pull out of that investment right at the wrong period of time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, so it's if I was selling you a product, would I care what your cash flow is going to be?
No.
Your budget? I don't care. First of all, nobody wants to talk about budgeting. I don't. I hate the word. That's why I like cash flow. But you can't make an investment decision if you don't know kind of how much you spend on an annual basis. And you've got to have a number out there.
Absolutely.
And you can use it, sit down with somebody, this sheet right here reminds me of, can you be your own shrink? I don't think so. I think you need somebody to kind of sit down with you and prod you and say, okay, come on, let's write it down. What are your goals? What's most important for you? If you could do it yourself, super. But I think it's very difficult to be honest with yourself.
It is, and a lot of times. I've talked with people and they want to I absolutely want to save for college for the grandchildren, when we know that they're going to be woefully short of their retirement goals. Well, really, in that kind of case, we understand that the grandchildren are important and education is going to be paramount. However, if you're going to become a burden on the next generations and you're not doing your part to take care of your own retirement, then really where's that balance fall into play? And that's going to be one of those, just one of the examples.
Yeah, some parents can't say no to the kids. A lot of times it happens, and that's another good reason to have a fee-only advisor. Because, blame it on the fee-only advisor. I would give you money, honey, but my fee-only advisor says I better not. You go talk to him. It works.
Who's primarily responsible for your grandchildren's education? Your children.
There you go. There you go.
Right?
Ask the room.
And you got community colleges, you got state college, you got the UCI. You don't have to go to Harvard.
All kinds of different ways to pay.
My mother has a total net worth probably of $150,000, and that's including her home. She saves money on her Social Security income. I don't know how she does it. She has set aside $40,000, $10,000 for each one of us in a CD. We beg her, please spend that money. She's 89. Spend that money. Can't. It's for us as kids, you know? And that's her choice. And so, you know, there's nothing about money that's totally rational. And so, you know, if she doesn't want to spend it, great, that's okay. I'm trying to get her to even give it away to one of my sisters who needs the money today. She will not do that. That's to her, is her choice. Her kids are the most important, and I go run into families that says the grandchildren are the most important. Forget the kids; they're a lost cause. The grandchildren, they're the wonderful people. So it really is true. You know, you gotta know what those goals are. We're all different. None of us are the same. So, we talked a little bit about cash flow. Anything else on cash flow?
Cash flow, no, that's basically it. And really it's going to give you a lot of, and the reason why there's so many categories is because it's going to give you things and categories that you might have forgot about. It's easy to forget where the money goes at the end of the month. And so this is kind of a good way to recall.
If you're married, do not show that sheet to your spouse. Okay? Number one reason for divorce is money. Okay? So we all have a little stash on the side that we don't have to talk to the spouse about. Is there a business around that operates on a cash, that doesn't do a cash flow analysis?
No.
No, not a business. In our personal life, though, we tend to ignore it. So, but somehow we do. We just have a different mechanism of keeping track of what we can and cannot spend. Is there a difference between cash flow for the younger generation and the older generation? Major. You know, your children already have your money spent. Okay? They're completely different. One of the things I think is one of the nice things that you can do for your kids is to give them a consultation or pay for an annual consultation with a fee-only advisor, because they're not going to listen to you about money and cash flow, but they may listen to a fee-only advisor and get their affairs in order, because it's not about buying products, it's how much they save.
Absolutely.
You know, and where they spend. And is there any encouragement from anywhere not to spend? I don't know of any. So, you know, so there's very little. So that's why that cash flow analysis becomes so important. Why do we need to know somebody's net worth? I go to parties and that's the first thing I ask people. What's your net worth?
Well, just like companies keep cash flow statements, they also keep balance sheets as well, right? We want to know what assets we have and what liabilities so that we can establish a net worth for a company. Why wouldn't that apply on a personal level as well? And it absolutely does. So we need to take inventory, and on this green sheet right here is just a short list so that you can compile your assets and your liabilities in simple addition and subtraction. It's going to give you your net worth statement, and that'll give you an idea. And this is also going to have bearing on your investment strategies later on when you do implement the actual financial plan. The amount of, or your total net worth does have a bearing on the way that you invest your assets going forward.
Do people sometimes feel poor, but their net worth statement shows that they're...
Yeah, absolutely. The wealth effect is definitely one of those motivators when, and this can be illustrated when we had the housing boom and people saw their net worth go up because they thought their house was worth X amount. And at that point, that wealth effect came in and they spent more too, right? And so people on the other side can feel that they're poor, however their net worth can be very positive. And in that case, it's good news because we can tell them that they're much closer to their goals than they thought they were.
Yeah, it's just so important. Once a year, you know, put a net worth statement together. Do you guys work with clients putting a net worth statement together?
Absolutely. This is part of the financial planning process. All these things are part of the package that we put together for our clients because it sets the groundwork, really. And so before we implement the actual financial plan, which we're going to get into next week, we need to know these basic levels of information.
Yeah, you can't advise people without literally knowing this simple amount of information of you. The net worth, when I was working at the university, I sit down with some of the professors and we say, let's first put together a net worth statement on a yellow sheet of paper, and they were shocked at the dollar level. And so if you feel like, for instance, we went through 2008, a market crash on our financials, well, you need to see it, the total picture as to how much did your net worth actually decrease. So you can't just pick one little part out and say, gosh, I'm doing lousy, my investments are doing poor, because, different parts may work better than others, and you're looking at the total picture.
Absolutely. A holistic approach is what we call it. It's not necessarily about just the portfolio or one piece of the portfolio. It's about your total net worth and what...
Is this, how long on the average does it take you and David to put this thing together for a client?
Well, a lot of that depends upon the client. It depends. We have clients with absolutely different levels of assets and also different levels of organization. So it's a matter of being able to pull all these things together.
It'll take sometimes, not kidding, almost 2 years just to get this kind of information out of someone and work with them. And here you're trying to do things that are in their best interest, and yet they want you to invest their money, and it puts the planner in a very difficult situation, because how can they do any kind of investing without knowing what your goals are, what your net worth is, and what kind of cash flow you have? You can't really make an investment. And the most common question that I get out of these sessions is, I've got $100,000. What do you suggest I do? I don't know.
Give it to me.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what your goals are. I don't know what your net worth is. I don't know what your cash flow is like. I don't, are you planning on using this in 5 years? Are you planning on doing this in 10 years? Does a 90-year-old spend the same amount as a newly retired 65-year-old? No. So there's different cash flow requirements there. This is just literally the basics that we're doing today. And does anybody have any questions on putting together a net worth or a cash flow statement?
How do you charge for this fact-finding activity?
Very good question. We are a fee only, like we said, and really that compensation would come from the client. We have, and really this is going to depend upon the complexity of the case. It depends upon how many things are out there and how many different inputs we're actually going to need to gather and put into play. And we talk about that with each one of the clients. Before we do any work with any client, we have a financial advisory agreement. And what that does is it puts forth the conditions under which we're going to be working with the client and our responsibilities as well as client's responsibilities and what fees are going to be paid for that.
Can I come up to you?
Yes.
Yeah. If I come up to you, I'm going to give you a little better idea right now.
Yeah.
I've got $1 million estate, and the only thing I want you guys to do is put a financial plan together for me. I do not want you to invest a dime for me. I just want an investment plan. What would be your charges? I have a brokerage account, I have an apartment that has rental income, and I have a house.
Okay. Well, our hourly fee is $150, and let's assume that it takes 10 hours to compile the goals, the net worth, the cash flow, recommendations going forward, any assumptions that have to be made about that particular client. A 10-hour package would, for example, be $1,500.
So that gives you an idea. Is that better?
Is that a 60-minute
Okay. I'm sorry?
Is that a 60-minute hour?
Yes.
You mean, would be 1,500 to come up with what? Not, you would have to have that from the client in order to come up with a financial plan, right? Or,
Correct.
in other words, it would be a plan to accomplish his goals.
Yes. And really, that's kind of our setting off point where we could actually come up with the recommendations that we need to go ahead and implement that plan.
Okay, and then part of that plan is reviewing insurance, reviewing your tax bracket, etc. Yes?
Well, according to this UAD,
Uh-huh.
as far as hourly rates go, let's say that the rate is $150 for David, but then it's $230 for someone, Leanne Chang.
Yes, Leanne Chang.
Is that all right?
Well, she's a forensic accountant, and she does higher-end work along that in preparing tax returns and things like that. So.
Forensic accounting is very helpful if you have to go back a number of years to figure out what happened in a particular case. I use forensic accounting a lot when I take over a trust. I need to find out, how much money was been taken, and so we require forensic accounting, and that's a completely different field again than normal accounting.
She was her own CFP and IRA, and had like $500 million under management 15, 20 years ago, and she got ill and lost most all of her clients, and she just asked if she could bring her clients that she had remaining to me, and we made an agreement, and that's why she's looking.
Yeah, good question. And again, it means the ADV form requires that full disclosure. So, you discover anything and that it should be all there on the ADV form. Kurt, David, thank you so much. Okay, then next week what we'll get into is what?
Asset allocation.
Asset allocation, and we'll get into how actually we do the investments. So it'll be much more fun. We don't have to go through the introduction part. Everybody wants the investment part. So we'll see you all next week. They're going to be around here for a little bit if you have a question, and I'll answer your question right afterwards. But we're cutting it right now. See you next week.